What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the BlockHash podcast, your number one resource for all that is happening across the emerging tech space. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Today, I'm joined by another special guest, Sergio, here, Chief Product Officer for SonarX, the one-stop shop for indexed blockchain data. We're going to talk about that today and what SonarX is up to as of lately. Sergio, welcome to the show, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. How you doing today?
Not too bad. Thank you very much. My pleasure being here. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Likewise, pleasure's all mine. Would love to get to know you personally a little bit as well. I'm sure the audience would also enjoy knowing a bit about your story, maybe how you got into the space. Everyone generally seems to have a pretty interesting story how they got into Web3, giving it's an early industry. So, what kind of led you down this path, and what eventually led to SonarX as well?
Absolutely. That's a very dangerous question because I love the sound of my voice. And when I start talking, it's hard to stop me. So please do it. I come from, I'm Italian. I was born in Italy. I come from very traditional small village in Italy. And my father was an engineer and an architect. And since I was little, he, kind of labor forced me into helping him in his job. And he had a passion for building stuff, fixing stuff. And one of the lessons he taught me was you can't just fix something without really understanding how that thing works, especially mechanical stuff. And you can't just fix it by solving a little problem. You need to actually look at what it does and try to make it better. And that's been always with me since that early age. And so when I got into banking and finance after university, I started looking around and I saw many things that I couldn't make really sense of. And so from working in a bank, I moved to working in software, trying to solve some of the things that I saw weren't working. And so at the very early stage of my career, I focused on TradFi, traditional finance, right? And investment management, order management systems. And I tried to solve some of the problems that were affecting the industry, like a lack of a common architecture and technology stack, data silos, all of that. And my goal has always been to make a tangible difference in the industry by redefining some of the tools that were commonly used. Right back in traditional finance, everybody was using order management systems, execution management systems, trading systems, risk management systems. And my problem was, why can't we bring all of this together? Right. So when I was at Bloomberg, one of the things we did, we released the first real usable order and execution management system. And then I moved to Calypso, now NASDAQ, and we tried to release, and actually we released the first real usable IBOR, investment book of records, that was going back to front. And when I was in that period, one of my colleagues in Bloomberg started talking about blockchain. Every single word used contained blockchain. And I was getting a bit upset. It was like, I didn't understand blockchain. It was 2017, so not super early. And this guy kept hammering us about we should move to blockchain, we should move to blockchain. And so at one point, I was like, I need to understand this technology. So I took a little pause from my job and I went back to do a course at MIT on blockchain technologies. And that's when my passion started, and I got hooked. I think I understood at the time the potential value of the technology and how we could revolutionize digitally, change everything in the digital economy that didn't really exist too much at the time. And so when AWS gave me the opportunity to work as a head of product for Amazon managed blockchain, I thought it was a godsend. I jumped on it and I never looked back. And then finally, working in AWS, I got to work with SonarX, that is a customer and a partner of AWS. And I realized the importance of what SonarX was doing, the importance of the problems it was solving. And I thought that it was even more foundational for the industry that solving for compute and storage, as Amazon does extremely well. And so that's why I decided to move over to SonarX.
Very nice. Sounds like you've got quite a bit of experience in the space, the course in MIT, AWS. Um, and then what is your role kind of entitle being a part of SonarX? You're the chief product officer, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a chief product officer. So I've been in the company 2 weeks. So I'm defining my role together with Jesse, my colleague, and Patrick, which is the founder and CEO. My role is to try to bring my vision. I have a very strong vision for what blockchain can do in general for the digital economy, especially when it comes to the financial sector, and trying to align this vision with the product offering of SonarX and shape it in a way that it becomes even more relevant for the evolution of the industry.
Awesome. So you're probably the best person to define this, but how would you best define the core mission here for SonarX? Like what problems are you guys aiming to solve here in the space?
We're actually trying to solve one of the most foundational problems. But before I attack the problem, let me answer the first part of your question. What is the mission of SonarX? Our mission is actually to tackle and solve the big data problem in blockchain, which is the infrastructure to access, process, improve quality, and consume data. And we saw this in terms of coverage of chains, quality of data, and most of all, scalability of these solutions, right? And that's why we in SonarX offers real-time and historical access to high-quality blockchain data across between 110 and 130 chains. And the reason why I'm using two numbers is because we process new chains almost continuously. There are always 10, 20 chains in the works. And so the moment I say 120 or 110, my engineers go like, hey, it's 130. We have already solved a few more. So and we try to solve this problem to guarantee precision, speed, and enterprise grade use for our customers. So basically, what we want to become and what we are at the moment is being a one-stop shop, as you mentioned yourself at the beginning, the single source of truth for blockchain data, on-chain data, across every possible chain that exists. And to be honest, our vision is that in the future, the number will grow significantly above the 100, 140, 130, whatever that we cover now, to possibly expand into the thousands. So this is pretty much what we're doing, and this is our mission. And we think that in order to guarantee the future and the success of blockchain and the digital economy, it's not just about the tokens, it's not just about the wallets, is in general about the infrastructure. And so we think that one of the major problems with the infrastructure is actually sort of a blind spot for many, and which is the data, accessing the data. Everybody's convinced that because blockchains are public, you can go and just access the data. But it's not just accessing the data, which per se as requires a lot of infrastructure efforts and technical solutions, but it's how the data moves, how to scale these solutions, and how to make sure that you access as many chains as possible so that your business stay current with the increased number of chains that exist out there. And that's our mission. We want to be the necessary layer, data layer that propels the blockchain real world adoption.
Absolutely. Access to data, especially in this space, is crucially important for, applications to run at their full potential and for the space to grow and scale properly and for a vested multi-chain ecosystem to really flourish, especially the infrastructure that allows for that to happen. And I kind of want to dive a little bit more under the hood here. And maybe you can walk us through a bit of the data indexing process on SonarX. I think is, pretty important, but also fascinating at the same time. So I know there's multiple different phases, from ingestion to processing to delivery and storage to consumption at the end of the day. What does that data process kind of look like if you can break down some of those phases, some of those steps, and the pathways that the data kind of goes through?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great question. There are multiple. We look at the data problem and the solution of the data problem as having three major pillars, right? And the first one is the infrastructure necessary to access and read the data across so many different chains. Obviously, the way of accessing the blockchain data is through what we call RPC calls, right? So you have nodes and you have these APIs that allow you to request data by submitting these RPC calls to the chains. And that's what we do on a grandiose scale, because obviously to cover so many chains. And one of the most important things is that for the vast majority of our chains, we have a double redundancy of these nodes for a number of reasons. Why? The first one is to assure high availability of our services and make sure that we always have access to the data. But the other one is the fact that, as you know, blockchain is built upon the concept of sacrificing consistency of between nodes in favor of availability and partition tolerance, which means that all the nodes will eventually achieve consistency, have the same data, but at any single moment, different nodes may actually know a different variation of reality, right? So you can't just rely on what one node tells you. You have to ask the same questions to multiple nodes and see what they answer in order to make sure that you are always you have always the most current version of the reality of the data. So that's one big thing that we do, and we do it. And if customers have to do that, that requires a lot of development, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of resources, a lot of rails. That represents what we call the undifferentiated heavy lifting of accessing the blockchain data. And lots of companies and lots of firms who haven't experienced that firsthand, they definitely underestimate this problem and how expensive and cumbersome it can be to solve. The second pillar, the second part, once we have extracted the data, we have some automated processor that always check, what is the most recent blocks compared to what we have in the queue, and keeps asking the data. Then we bring the data in. The data comes, as you know, because it's an RPC in JSON format. So what we do is we take the JSONs and we start parallel processing them in order to guarantee scale. So that we unpack them, we decode them, and we start indexing them in a common format as much as possible across all the different chains. And this process, in this process, we also do something extremely important, which is we increase the quality of the data. We have a 9 points quality improvement process that is very thorough and goes from very basic things like making sure that the blocks are sequenced correctly. We check at any point that there are no nulls, there are no dupes. We apply checksum to make sure that all the sums are correct. Or we go even through some of the most complex issues like the reorg that may happen, as I mentioned before, because of the way blockchain works, that may work between in a chain, and that would require quite extensive working backward to fix the chain of the blocks. And so this is where we process the data and then we index them. When we say index, as you know, means that we put them in a tabular format, in a database format, in a data warehouse, and in a common format. And I think this is one of the most important things we do because if you look at chains, I use the analogy of considering chains a little bit like exchanges, in the sense that they don't perform the same function, obviously, but they are sources of data, right? And so in traditional finance, we source the data from exchanges, right? But very few players, firms do direct access to all the exchanges, right? Because it's cumbersome, because each exchange speaks its own language, has its own data format, has its own data conventions, identifiers, and so on and so forth. So there are providers, like, I don't want to mention anybody specifically, but I work for one of them. But there are lots of providers that actually solve that problem by putting all the exchange data in a common format, consolidated common format. And the vast majority of people that interact with markets in traditional finance actually interact with this common format of exchange data provided by these super famous data providers. And that's what we do as well. We put all the data in a common format that is easily accessible, easily understandable, and that has already been decoded and conventions applied, so that our customers don't need to speak the language of the chains to interpret the data that we provide for all 120, 130, whatever number of chains. And this is the second pillar. And then finally, the third pillar is to make data available to customers in a way that maximizes their ability to consume the data. Because really, I mean, if you are an enterprise, you don't want dashboards or anything like that. What you want is programmatic, scalable access to this high quality data, right? You want to make sure you have high availability, you have a high uptime, you are SOC 2 compliant. And so what we do is we allow customers to access the data in a number of very efficient ways that can go from simply transferring files. We support many different file formats, S3 to S3 transfers, or anything else a customer may need. But we think that the best way of accessing, or the most efficient way of accessing our data, is through some of our partners like Snowflake or Databricks, that basically allow customers to have this programmatic access by separating the cost of storage from the cost of compute. The customer don't incur the cost of storage. They only pay for consuming the data through queries. They only pay for the compute time for those queries. And we think that by doing this, we give a great service to our customers, because through implementing these three pillars, we allow them to access the data and consume the data without having to worry about infrastructure. Sorry, it was a bit long, but I hope I gave you.
No worries. No, I appreciate the breakdown, everything. No, that's awesome. And then you mentioned that you guys already service like 130 blockchains out there. I was going to ask you which ones that you've indexed and organized data for thus far, but it seems like you guys are already doing that for quite a few chains, huh?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to mention anybody specifically, because otherwise, the ones that I leave behind may be upset, and we don't have time to mention all 130. But the one important thing is, yes, we cover all 130 chains the same way. We index data across all of them. We improve the quality across all of the chains. All the chains are equally important to us. And their importance depends by the fact that they're important to our customers, right? And one of the things that we are very proud of, besides the data quality, is the fact that we can add new chains at a very, very fast speed. And that's the secret of what we do. And one of the reasons is that we cover every possible protocol, whether it's EVM, whether it's Solana, Cosmos, whatever. And so that allows us to quickly integrate chains that are based on these protocols, whether they are rollups, L2, or whatever, right? And that's one of the things that I think, and our customer think, distinguish and separate us from other in the industry.
Okay, cool. And I noticed that you guys had a couple products here, and I believe that they play into this process as well, the one that you just spent some time outlining. But I saw SonarX real-time data and historical streaming. Those are the two main ones, correct?
Yeah, so the two mains are the full historical data, which you can consume mostly by accessing the files or through, as I mentioned before, Snowflake's Databricks. But we also have the real time. Actually, we working as we speak. It's one of my first projects in the company. We're working as we speak to greatly improve our real time to make sure that we move to a very extremely low latency, given the quality of the data that we add on top of the raw data. So in the next literally couple of weeks, we will have an enhanced real-time product that will actually be no more than probably a couple of seconds behind tip of the chain, which if you consider the amount of processing that we add to this data is pretty hard goal to achieve.
Another question that kind of just came to mind talking about all this data that's moving around within the space and that you guys are helping facilitate is around compliance and security for data security. And I'm sure it's something that you guys have put a lot of thought into, but just for the sake of asking, I'm curious, like what kind of things go into data security for you guys in terms of locking down that data that you guys are processing and filtering through?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we aim at having and being the provider for data infrastructure for key players in the industry, like the institutions, the FSI, the financial service institutions. And for, as you know, for these guys, there is no messing around when it comes to quality of data, but also security of data. So we take these extremely seriously. That's why we are partnering with AWS. All our processing happens on AWS and benefits from the native security of the AWS environment. And we don't do anything to the data but to improve the quality. And we make sure that there is no gap in the process between the collection of the data and the moment that we deliver the data to our customers. Everything happens in a secure environment on the AWS network.
Okay, gotcha. I also want to ask you a high level sort of question about, the future of, on-chain data in this industry. Obviously, we live in a time where data is liquid oil, liquid gold, however you want to reference it, but it's probably the most important commodity today, arguably, and will continue to be in the near future. And I wanted to ask you if you've thought about maybe the importance of data in unlocking, the potential for blockchain technology in the future, and maybe what opportunities that this will present, especially through SonarX making data, more accessible, more liquid. What does that future kind of look like if you can envision it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, very dangerous question. As I mentioned, I have a very strong vision of the potential of blockchain. And I think everybody who's paying a little bit of attention these days is noticing how big changes are coming. Blockchain is not an experiment anymore. Blockchain is here to stay and is transforming some of the major industries, including financial services, right? I don't know if you have had the chance to look at the DCC demo of their collateral management over blockchain. There is a Nasdaq that has used Solana to trade 10% of their daily volume on a blockchain as an experiment. Swift is working on using blockchain as a way of connecting different payments and settlement networks. All of this means one simple thing, means that the financial industry is on the verge of what is not just an evolution, it's a revolution. And will move more and more real world assets into the blockchain. So which brings enormous advantages, but also brings a lot of challenges when it comes to the data. Blockchain data is expanding and will expand even more when more assets, digital assets or tokenized assets will become mainstream, which is happening right now. And the major problem will be accessing data across multiple chains. Why multiple chains? Because one of the reasons of using blockchain is the best way of transferring value. Is a value transferring machine, optimized value transferring machine, and is important in financial services because you are in a business where you want to have access to as much liquidity pools as you want. The only way to have access to these many liquidity pools is to have different chains that serve different niches and different customers and different use cases. So we envision more and more of these chains to exist in the future, and this will require a lot of data to be collected and will require a single source of truth across the whole industry that will bring together buy side, sell side, intermediaries, and regulators, which are the four major components and players necessary to work together to create the correct market infrastructure. And so that's why we think that SonarX is uniquely positioned to make this happen, to be the connectivity tissues between all these players to create this market infrastructure by providing the best possible golden source of high quality data.
It sounds like you also believe, like kind of like I do, in this ever-growing multi-chain ecosystem, which only benefits SonarX even further. So it's more data to bring together from all these different chains. But do you think that we'll continue building out multiple different chains for different industries, for different niches, and this interconnectivity of data interoperability will be even more important?
Absolutely. First of all, the more complex the problem, the more value in the solution, right? So, as you mentioned, all of this is something that we are very proud to be able to provide a solution for, because that's what our customers need and will need even more in the future. And I do absolutely believe, like you, that chains will only proliferate. And the reason is very simple, as I mentioned before. You need different chains, different coins, different protocols to service different use cases, niches, and liquidity pools. And the great thing about blockchain is that is a technology stack that allows all these chains to exist and to interoperate together. We call it to some extent interoperability, also composability, which is the ability to interact within other assets and applications on the network. And this is one of the biggest advantages of blockchain as a technology. And so I don't see why we want to give up this advantage, which is unique to blockchain, and not create as many chains as necessary that actually work together and have players like us on a different side. Not everybody has to do data infrastructure, but the chain link of the world, just to mention one, but there are many others. Again, don't want to forget anybody. That will actually make sure that all these different chains actually work together and maximize the power of the blockchain across this digital economy.
Absolutely. And very well put. I also want to ask you about your guys' roadmap here in 2025. It kind of feels weird to say that, since I think we're almost done with halfway done with 2025. It's almost June. What's on the horizon here for SonarX? What are you guys working on? Any upcoming launches, announcements, anything kind of for the ears people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Please stay tuned and pay attention, because we have a few things that we definitely want to get done in 2025, even if, as you said, we're almost for the year. But we're working relentlessly to get it done. I mentioned before the new real-time infrastructure. It will be a real-time on steroids, not just low latency, but coverage across all the chains and ability
in the near future to combine not just real-time data, but also real-time and historical data, which means that customers eventually will be able to create topics that they listen to, because obviously it's streaming real-time, that combine both real-time data, top of the chain, as well as historical ones, which is very powerful. Imagine if somebody wants to know what happened. I know every single time there is a new block for a wallet or an address, I also want to know what is the balance of that wallet for this token, right? So in order to answer this question in a streaming scenario, you need to be able to combine these different type of data, right? And being able to do that is one of the achievements we have given to ourselves for 2025. The other part and is to make sure that we make the consumption of our data even more accessible and simpler for our customers, and also able to leverage some of the benefits of the blockchain, which are the programmable nature of the technology and the smart contract. So we are envisioning creating AI agents that can use our data to drive or to trigger the execution of smart contracts. And I think that is something that will open a lot of new features and possibility for our customers and for our product.
Very exciting. There's a lot of conferences, events going on. You guys going to be attending any of these engagements, anywhere people can maybe link up with you guys in person?
Oh, absolutely. I personally won't be at Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas, but if you guys, anybody has the opportunity to be there next week, SonarX will be there. A lot of my colleagues will be there. Please visit us. There will be a lot of events, and we will play a big role in that convention.
Excellent. And where can people go to learn more about SonarX and, get in touch with you guys, maybe if they want to work with you or collaborate, as well as maybe yourself? Where's the best place to go?
Great. I would say that to begin with, going to our website, sonarx.com, is easiest way. Feel free to reach out to me personally. My email is very simple. It's Sergio, which is my name, Sergio @sonarx.com. I'm more than happy if anybody wants to email me directly, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a quite public person. It's easy to find me and message me, ask to connect. I'm more than glad to do that. And actually, I hope people would do that. I would love to get in touch and have any feedback about what we do and the problem we're trying to solve, and how we can possibly help more customers.
Awesome. Sergio, appreciate you taking the time today. This has been a really great conversation. Learned a lot about SonarX, and love that you guys are building out this one-stop shop for indexed blockchain data. I think this is very important for the space, and will, again, as we kind of mentioned in the conversation, continue to be important as chains proliferate and the space continues to grow and there's more data and more to bring together. So keep up the great work and keep me updated on everything that's going on. And let's do another episode relatively soon. Maybe we can do something in person as well.
Absolutely. I'd love to come to Medellin and enjoy the great weather.
Yeah, anytime. Or I'll come to Jersey. Why not?
Why not? Absolutely.
Awesome,
Thank you so much.
Yep. Take care. Have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Likewise. Thank you. Bye-bye.